Hey there Facebook, it is Vanessa here again, your motivational speaker, trainer and head coach from Live, Love, Give. And today's message is all about future pacing your behavior so that you can live a regret-free life. And as always, every time I come up with a message for you guys, it's something going on in my life that I'm just called to talk into, and this is no different. There's some situations in my life right now where, I'm having to sort of navigate some waters that, there's that, that's kind of like egoic part of us could sort of like act and behave poorly. And I'm really building some consciousness around that, because ultimately my goal is, one of my highest values is to have consciousness and to act with emotional intelligence. And my definition of emotional intelligence is to make a situation better rather than worse based on your response to it. So that's why I wanted to bring this message to you guys today, because often when we are in situations that can be kind of triggering, where we might feel hurt or whatever's going on, we might, like, our instant reaction can sometimes be to get kind of revenge, right? So what I wanted to sort of bring to you is this idea of being proud of how you have operated, and the way that we do that in those times where we could easily go the wrong way and we could just go for the instant sort of gratification and do something that we may, in the future actually really regret and feel really bad about. Instead, I want you to think about what I call future pacing. And it's all about, how am I going to feel like, am I going to be proud of my behavior here in the years to come? Am I going to look back on this time and am I going to be like kind of regret what I did? Am I going to feel kind of bad about how I operated? Or am I going to choose something that empowers me? And even though I could have potentially got that gratification in the moment, I've chosen to behave in a certain way that I can feel truly proud of. And this is so key for building your self-belief and your trust and integrity with yourself. But often we don't really know how to operate when we haven't identified who our higher self is. So I really want this video to inspire you guys to get really intentional about who your higher self is. What are the kind of qualities, traits, ways of being, kinds of behaviors, and the way that we're operating in the world that ultimately we're really inspired by. Like, if we showed up as that person, we would be so proud of ourselves. And ultimately, that's what I want you guys to think about. The whole idea and concept behind future pacing is it's all about creating space. It's all about creating that space in time where you could go one of two ways. You could react with the ego and try and get revenge or feel good in the moment and bring somebody else down. But we all know, we've been there, we've all done it, we're human, and we never feel proud about those moments. Or you could be creating that space to make a better decision, one that you can feel good at, as your future self will feel really proud of you for. And it kind of goes against our nature at times to create that space and choose something more empowering, particularly when we are not feeling good within ourselves, when we're feeling triggered, and particularly when we haven't set intention for ourselves about who is our higher self. Who is that individual? You, what are the best parts of you that you are so proud of and you will be really proud of yourself moving forward with? How can you hold your head high? And a really good sort of question that came up, I think many years ago, I don't know where I saw it, but I think it might have been on Facebook. Somebody put a post and it was like, would you be proud of your behavior if it was aired on the 6 o'clock news tonight? And I kind of thought that was really cool, because sometimes, we're just so caught up in our ego and just, we're triggered and we're not in a great state that we can often, behave really poorly or treat people really poorly, often the ones that are closest to us. And if we knew that that was going to get aired, it gives us that space, it gives us that level of consciousness to actually look at ourselves, take a third perspective, and be more intentional about how we behave. So instead of, thinking about it like that, I want you to think about your future self being truly proud of you for operating in a really great way, a way that, has made the situation better rather than worse based on your input to it. And that's really what I'm talking into today, guys. So I hope that this is resonating with you. My hope is that it gets you thinking and building more consciousness about creating that space between the situation that you are confronted with that could potentially be triggering, and creating enough space for you to make that decision to make the situation better rather than worse based on your input, the definition of emotional intelligence, and operating from a place of intentionality about who your higher self is and who your future self will be really proud of yourself for being. So let me check in with you guys and see how you're going and who's joined me today, and make sure that you're dropping any questions, comments, experiences of your own where you've gone through this. I'd love to hear from you. Moises, I always love seeing you. Thank you so much for joining again. And Tahia, and Melissa and Caden, awesome to see you back. I love it. And I look forward to seeing you too. And Supreet and Ram, Anyeta and Jason and Judy and Tanzia. Not sure what you're dropping in there. And James and Spady and Gina. I still need to give you a call and check that name. And Muritesh and Ventura and Carolina and Faisal and Nu and Dan and Uma. Awesome. And Anga and Muritesh. How can we maintain relationship for a long time because we will be misunderstanding? Okay, so Muritesh, you're asking a question about how can we maintain long-term relationship. Okay, well, this is a really great way. So we're talking today all about building your emotional intelligence by future pacing, by thinking about, okay, how I respond right now, will I be proud of this in my future? Will my future self be proud of how I'm operating here? I can look back and be proud, or am I going to regret this? And that is ultimately the basis of creating extraordinary quality of relationship and being able to, build a long-term relationship. You've got to have emotional intelligence. So this is just one, that answer, Muritesh, could go in so many different ways. There are so many tips, tools, strategies, everything talking into creating extraordinary quality relationship. But this is the basis, I believe, is having emotional intelligence, being able to future pace and make great decisions that you don't regret, you actually feel proud of. So I hope that helps. And Paul and Roy and Sarima, nice to have you. Grateful that this is resonating with you, Roy. Thank you. And Christian and Helen and Peter and Andrew and Kathy, awesome. And Ila, yes, I do meditate. Each and every day I meditate. I'm a big believer in meditation. I don't do long meditations though. My meditations, I just want to remain consistent. I think I'm up to day 139 or something straight, which is really a big thing for me because over the years I have tried to get into meditation and it's been challenging, but I really love what I do now. Check out the Daily Calm app. That's what I use. I'm always suggesting that you guys check that out. Free app, just awesome. I get a lot from it. Hope that helps. And Pushpa, nice to have you. Ram, values are the foundation which never change over time and are like a compass for navigating through life effectively. I love that, Ram. I love that you know the value of values. What I would say though is that your values can change over time and it would serve you really well, everybody out there, to maintain sort of a way of checking in with your values. I like to do it once a quarter to really just re-engage, because I really believe that each and every one of us out there is always constantly evolving, growing, learning more about ourselves, learning more about the world, learning more about what we do and we don't want, and ultimately that can affect and shift our values. So we need to stay in alignment with what those values are, because they are what actually give us energy, motivation moving forward. And when we're unconscious of what our values are, we can kind of like just go with everybody else's values, get thrown off path, and ultimately start living an unfulfilling life. So it's really important that you do uncover your values and have a process in place that allows you to re-identify what those values are and align with them. Love that so much, Ram. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts here. Always appreciate you. And Holly, choosing empowering behaviors is something that really resonates with me. Awesome. Thank you for covering this. Definitely, I'm on a journey to truly find my highest self. I love it. And I'm about to spend time with my family in Canada for 3 weeks. And no, I really need to work on my ego's reactions and work on creating a space for more empowering choices. I'm so grateful for you, Holly. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and what you're going through right now. I love that this is resonating. And isn't it so funny how our loved ones, particularly our closest members in our family, can trigger us so badly? Isn't it funny, you know? And yeah, I could do a whole Facebook Live on why that is. That's some really valuable stuff in terms of, you know, developing who, you know, all these past patterns as to who we felt we needed to be in order to gain love. So we can ultimately be really identified with how our family members, particularly whoever we craved the most love from growing up, you know, whoever that model was for us, then ultimately they can be sometimes our biggest trigger because, and we don't even know why. We just, they just trigger us and they bring out what's seemingly the worst of us. And it's all because of this subconscious stuff about what we're identifying with. So I'm not going to cover that today because it gets really in depth, but I love what you're saying there, Holly, and I love that this is resonating. And what it really does take, I would encourage you to get really intentional before your trip. Maybe on your way over there, you get really intentional about, you know, ultimately, who is your highest self? What are those scenarios? I really believe in visualization of the scenarios that you already know you get triggered in. Who's that person? Like, does your dad trigger you when he talks about this, or whatever the scenario is, whoever it is, whatever you know, you can future pace and decide, okay, I've been here before. This is sometimes what triggers me. This is how my higher self would operate there. Get intentional and you get so empowered. So I really hope that you give that a go. I hope that made sense. I hope that added some value to you there, Holly. And I hope you have a brilliant time in Canada. I love Canada. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So I bet you'll have a brilliant time. And Hyungal, thank you for joining me. And Misty, I'm still learning to operate, especially when people pleasing. Yes, I get angry because I feel taken advantage of at times. That's where saying no comes in. I got off key the other night. I apologize. Oh, no, yes, learned my triggers. Awesome, awesome. So Misty, again, thank you so much for sharing your experience here. I always appreciate when you guys engage with me. That's what I'm here to do. And yes, I totally, as you know, resonate with the whole people pleasing. It's something that I think I'm always going to be a recovering people pleaser. And that's just something that we kind of need to be conscious of. We need to be conscious of our patterns so that we can have the courage to break them and be much more intentional and courageous in our interactions. But yes, and also, you know, that whole concept around feeling taken advantage of, I would challenge you to think about how many things are you doing in your life, you know, potentially with that people pleasing, that nobody's actually asking you to do and nobody's actually expecting you to do, but you go and do it and you put yourself out and you actually have these expectations on others as to how they're supposed to respond to you, even though nobody asked you to do it. And this is something that this dynamic happens a lot in my family with my loved ones. And it's something like I'm always trying to bring more consciousness to with different family members. And it's really valuable. I really love that you're building your consciousness there, Misty, and sharing everything here. And I hope that what I've said there resonates with you. Let me know. And Lawrence, awesome to have you join. And Jenai, think about the words that are about to come out of your mouth. Yeah, as words can really affect another person, words can be very hurtful. That's so true. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the 5 love languages, but ultimately, if we have people in our lives who their highest love language is what's called words of affirmation, those people in particular are so hurt by our words. So, it's just something to be conscious about. And I challenge you guys to go, if you haven't heard of the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, jump on his website, do the free test, the 5 Love Languages, the 5lovelanguages.com. Do the test, find out what you are. It's a really great, powerful tool to understand, how more self-awareness around how you feel loved. And if you can get your loved ones to do it as well, it's such a valuable tool in order to make sure that we're not, having those sort of circumstances where we're like really, crashing somebody's love party with our poor choice of words, particularly when they are driven by words of affirmation. That's how they feel loved. You can really make them feel terrible, particularly those type of people. So yes, I totally agree with you there. And thank you so much for sharing, Gino. And Robbie, awesome to have you. And Moises, thank you. I'm at, all right, restaurant eating Mexican tacos. I love it. I love Mexican. And Shane, awesome to see you. And Mully and Matt Reese. Does this go the same for being afraid to make a big decision? Yes, definitely. You need space. You need to create space. Instead of just reacting from fear, we need to respond from an intentional place. So I would definitely say that what I'm talking about now, this is foundational to so much in our lives. This is all about emotional intelligence. And definitely when we can create that space and future pace, visualize the different outcomes. Like if we make this decision, how could that potentially look? And will we be proud of ourselves for how that turns out? Or could we have some regrets here? And really, utilize the power of future pacing to be successful in all of your interactions and your decisions. So thank you so much for that question, Matt. You rock. I love it. And I hope that was helpful. And Chris and John, nice to have you. And Ram, the impact of my today's behavior, thoughts and actions on tomorrow, future pacing. Yes, definitely. Frank, nice to have you. Jay, 139 days straight, daily calm app. I love it. Thank you. And awesome. Love that you're agreeing with this, Ram. And Bradley, nice to have you. And Kaden, yes, future pacing sounds interesting. I was able to move past my biggest regrets by diving wholeheartedly in acceptance and a forgiving life itself, because ultimately life isn't what to blame, it's what to thank. I love that, Kaden. Thank you so much for sharing such a powerful and empowering mindset. I love the growth that you've already had. It's really inspiring. And I love that you are finding the concept of future pacing interesting. I think it's highly, highly valuable, and it's served me so well, particularly like I mentioned, I'm going through something right now that future pacing has really helped me, definitely. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And I love, you're talking into blame there also. Blame never ever serves, ever. There is never ever any room for blame of yourself, of another, of life circumstances. All it does is serve to disempower you. And I love that you are shifting that from blame to thanking, being grateful, finding the gratitude, finding the beauty in everything and everyone. That is ultimately what empowers you to move forward and live a regret-free life. So I love that, Kaden. Thank you so much for sharing. Tracy, awesome to have you. And Frank, what specific introspection technique do you use to uncover your values? Okay, so values is never a really quick, simple, easy process. It's something that I feel I get more and more clear of over the years of my own personal growth. So you just got to start. I've used a number of different techniques from what Tony Robbins does, which is all about mapping out your towards values, what the values you want to move towards are, and also the away from values, what values you want to move away from. But that could be a whole nother topic and can get really deep. So what I would say, I highly recommend, there's a free resource that you guys can access right now, which is search for, I might even link it up for you after I get off this, I'll link it up for you. But Dr. John Demartini, an incredible mentor of mine, I love this man's work so much, and he has a free value determination test that you can do online, which is just a bunch of questions that helps you get clarity over what your real values are. And I love his process process because it's very realistic in terms of what your actual values are rather than what you think they should be. When we can kind of get really idealistic, but ultimately we're trying to, be something we think we should rather than identify what our true values are. So I will link that up for you. I appreciate you asking there, Frank. I hope that that's helpful for you. And Chris, awesome to have you. And Maximilian and David and Doris and Lisa, great to see you. And Andrea and Simon, awesome. Holly, awesome advice. Yes, I think I need to start a higher self journal and log my triggers. Great. I love that you're becoming your own coach here. You're a 40-year-old woman and regressed to a 14-year-old on a past family vacation. I totally relate to that. So I will totally work on future pacing. I want to be proud of myself after this trip. Awesome. And Holly, I'd love for you to stay connected. Let me know how your trip goes. Let me know how future pacing has served you. And I absolutely love your idea of having a higher self journal. That is awesome. The more intentional we can get, the easier it is to fall back on those intentions when we are triggered, because we have another option rather than the ego and rather than that 14-year-old self that we can all so easily fall into, particularly if we're not used to interacting and engaging with our family all the time and we haven't done much work as to break through those old patterns. So I love that, Holly. Thanks, and stay in contact. And Graham, awesome to have you. And Mira, nice to have you. Simon, listening from Mexico. I love it. And Tony, nice to have you. And Alavarison, nice to have you. And awesome, Lisa, yes. And Nancy, nice to have you. Guys, that is my message. I want you to really be thinking about being emotionally intelligent, being empowered, being intentional about who your higher self is, so that you have that option, you have those tools in your tool belt, so you don't get triggered and do something that you're going to regret. You actually start operating from a place where you are going to be truly proud of who you are and who you're becoming and who you're stepping into. So that's what life is about. And Ila, nice to have you from Canada. And CH Rosa, I'm not sure how to say your name, but I'm so grateful that you're joining me now. I hope you catch the recording and get a ton of value from today's message. But really, that is it from me today, guys. I've loved having you here. As always, I get so much juice from getting to engage with you guys and seeing where you're at. And I love and so appreciate your openness to share your experiences. It's really inspiring to me. So thank you so much. And guys, I hope that you drop me any questions or comments or any feedback that you have for me in terms of how I could be adding some more value to your lives. That's what I'm here to do. And I really value your feedback so that I can definitely make sure that I am progressing with you and helping you more and more. And I love you guys so much. I'm sending you all of my love, light, blessings, gratitude, energy, enthusiasm, everything brilliant coming at you from wherever you are in the world today. And I cannot wait to see you guys tomorrow. So hope you can join me.